This Nintendo Direct has been very, very interesting because it truly has demonstrated a core problem with the community that does need to be addressed. Like, namely, the games that are worshipped, that are hyped up, that are worth buying a PlayStation and Xbox for are suddenly not a big deal if they see a release on Nintendo Switch 2. And it's so easy to look at this recent Nintendo Direct and try and say, like, all of it is late ports or that none of it is relevant and none of it's competitive. That is not true at all. Like, there were exclusive titles in there, there were titles that hadn't come out yet, and there were AAA major games from Capcom in particular that were getting day-and-date releases. So, Pragmata and Resident Evil 9, under normal circumstances, would have been seen as major like releases and like, you know, things to look forward to for this console. But the reason these are being written off and ignored is because that they are getting Nintendo Switch 2 releases. Okay, we have tons of games coming out on the Switch 2 over the past several weeks, many of them that are launching day and date with other consoles, and yet you still have reaction channels like trying to sit there and trying to do this thing like where like, oh, I've already played that, like for games that haven't come out yet. You know, that's the reoccurring thing with this direct, the reoccurring trend. Like, we have tons of games coming out over the next month. You know, I'm picking up like 4 of them in February alone, I think. Mario Tennis, Yakuza 3. Oh no, I got Dragon Quest 7 as well. You know, Tales of Berseria, Resident Evil 9. So yeah. 5 titles in a month, and then like March has like Pokepia. You know, there are a couple of other games coming out in March as well. And then you have April where we're getting like Tomodachi Life and Pragmata. So like basically there are tons of games coming out in like the future, not even like counting like, you know, smaller releases and like ports and Nintendo Switch 2 editions, like Mario Wonder expansions coming out in March, late March. So like you have games like that, you have all this great stuff coming out, and yet you have all these reaction channels trying to say that like none of it matters, that none of it's competitive, that like there's nothing to get excited for, and it's embarrassing. Like, it really, truly, genuinely is. Because, like, what exactly are you looking forward to is what I want to know. Like, what it seems to be to me is that outside of, like, Mario and Zelda, most of these people don't really play a ton of Nintendo games at all. You know, they don't have any experience with, like, any of the other series. They don't have experience with any of these other brands. Like, they really genuinely believe that Tomodachi Life is not a big player for this year. I genuinely think it's probably going to be one of the biggest titles this year, actually. Like, again, you keep seeing people, like, say that, like, Nintendo is doomed, they needed to, like, have a good Direct, and they needed to do this, and this. But, like, in actuality, and I do think this is true, like, no matter how good the Direct was, no matter how well Nintendo is doing, you are going to see these people cope and seethe about it. And that's been, like, a reoccurring thing for, like, since this thing got unveiled, okay? Like, people have been delusionally trying to create this narrative that this console is failing, that it's not successful, that nobody likes it, but in actuality, it's all just a massive cope. It's all just a massive cope and a seed. Like, trying to present this narrative that this console is irrelevant, that the PC is beating it. You know, like, I've seen so many people, like, pop off such, like, insane claims, like, oh, Power World outsold Legend ZA, like, didn't happen. Like, but the sales numbers, yeah, the sales numbers that Power World released on a JPEG, and then Jeff Keighley said were real. Okay, are you really gonna believe that? Okay, you can look at like Power World's player count right now. You can see how irrelevant it is. You know, you can see how like little social media presence they have. Like, you can tell that like all these numbers are fake. You know, and yet it's just a tech startup where they're trying to pretend that they're bigger than they really are, right? You see people, like, trying to tell you that, like, the PS5 outperformed the Switch 2 this holiday season. The PS5 sold 8 million units and the Switch only sold 7. As if, like, first of all, as if that's a big difference, first of all. And second of all, as if, like, the PlayStation 5 didn't give itself, like, massive discounts to get those numbers. Okay? It's like, you're delusional, okay? And that's, like, that's just kind of my issue with this, honestly, is that people really think Nintendo is failing and that they're struggling and that they botched the release of this console, and it's just, it's just so obviously not true. We're at the point now where you have people pointing to the stock prices as like a demonstration of how badly Nintendo is doing. And this is something I've been like repeating a lot lately. When the stock prices go up, when they like reach all-time highs, which I'm sure is going to happen, like when they start announcing like when they start releasing like big new games and all that, like when the stock prices go up, like you're not going to hear a peep out of these people, like because they have no idea what's actually going on. They are not familiar with the business side of Nintendo at all. They aren't familiar with like the standard stock prices and the stock rises and the stock falls. Like can they tell you like what the stock price was like a year ago? Like a little bit like around where it is now. Okay, like it hit an all-time high with the Switch 2 release because of the hype of the platform, and now it's going back to its like pre-hype levels. Like that's normal. Okay, it dipped after a financial report. That's normal. Like this is all stuff you would know if you knew anything about the market at all and how these things typically go. But like they don't know. Like that's the problem, is that these people are ignorant. They don't look into the facts, and they misrepresent things in order to desperately try to make Nintendo look bad for clickbait. And I do think like the reaction to this Direct is a very good example of that, because this Direct basically showed off a bunch of games that will be a bunch of third-party games that we'll be getting in the next 3 months. Okay, we had like a couple of June releases, but like for the most part, this is like February, March, April. Okay, for the most part. So like obviously they're gonna have like a general Direct. Obviously they're gonna have more Directs in the future. So like people who are doom and glooming about this, like why don't you just stop and like actually look at the upcoming games on the eShop page and see just how many games are coming out on this thing? Why don't you just play games that you that are already on the console? Like, and again, this is the thing that really bothers me about this, is that like the narrative that like I have to play brand new games that are exclusive to Switch 2. It's like, what are you talking about? Like tons of games that are coming out right now are also launching on Switch 1. And they're doing very, very well. That goes to show you just how like successful the Switch 1 has been, is that people are still buying Pokemon Legends EA on it. It doesn't mean the Switch 2 is a failure. It means that people haven't moved over yet. There's no reason to. And like again, this is a good thing. They didn't abandon the platform. And like to me, it's very, very sad how desperate the community is to continue this farce that like Nintendo is failing. Like, because they have completely neglected to mention the Switch 1's existence during all of this. They have neglected to mention the Switch 1 still getting games and still being relevant. And it's like, they are going to be very, very surprised with how well these Switch 1 releases do in the future. Tomodachi Life, in particular, I'm predicting is probably going to sell like upwards of 20 million units, right? Like, it's going to be huge. And for whatever reason, like the community and like the analysts like are really overlooking this very, very obvious blind spot. They are very, very much overlooking the fact that new games are coming out all the time, and their entire cope is that there's nothing to play is just so utterly delusional that nobody could possibly take it seriously. It's just the reality of it. And it is high time that we really start pushing back against this kind of nonsense.